Tonight we actually concluded chapter 32. Amazing, powerful messages and so relevant. Who are we supposed to hate? What is the procedure, the protocol, the prerequisites, and what happens after? Hope you enjoy. Feel free to subscribe, share, and drop a like. All right. So last week we discussed at length the idea of loving, the idea of loving other people, the idea of loving other Jews, the idea of loving them freely. That there's no bar they have to match. There's nothing they have to do. They're one with you. We discussed how this is the entire Torah. And we began discussing what about this Talmudic injunction that there are people you have to hate. So it's all very practical. It's all very relevant. We deal with people all day long. Anyone had opportunity to utilize this chapter this week? Anyone remembered it over the course of their week? All right. Well, hopefully you did, and you just don't remember now, or it's just not something that's so translatable to answer quickly. Or maybe like many of these ideas, it's just a drop and another drop and another drop. And you might say, I've learned this many times before. I'm still waiting for all the drops to penetrate and make a difference. But we trust that it does. We trust that each drop, as we internalize it, as we digest it, as we think about it, then things shift. And maybe we have to hear these ideas many, many, many times and process them and really think over them and really try to find where we fit into this to see how it fits, to see how we can shift. But that's what they're about. It's about us changing. Tanya, I know a lot of people like me, people like us, we think of Tanya as like, I'm learning philosophy, I'm learning theology. Tanya is about avodah. Tanya is about me being a person who can better serve God. That's what Tanya is about. It's about a Jew and his service of God. Tanya is not written as a philosophy text. It's not written as a treatise of theology. It's written to help a person come closer to themselves, come closer to God. And especially when we're learning chapter 32 of Tanya, which is all about relating to people and loving people just because they're a piece of you, because they're a Jew. That's definitely supposed to be something we translate into the practice. So with that little guilt trip, we will continue what we were discussing. We are about halfway through chapter 32. So let's just remember exactly what we were up to. So we were saying was that the first half of this chapter, the Alter Rebbe was explaining that the Torah says, love your fellow. Could have stopped there, God, but he didn't. Ka maicha, which means as you love yourself. So something simple becomes suddenly something impossible. And the Alter Rebbe explains how to do that. And the Alter Rebbe says, no, this is actually possible. Because if you prioritize soul, your soul, and any other Jew's soul, it's one entity. So self-love becomes love for someone else. Just don't look at anything but soul. Or you can look at other things if they help, if they even enhance. But anything that would disturb or would distract or would put a barrier, it's not the person. Look at soul. So this was a powerful injunction to limitlessly, to the degree we love ourselves, and if we're healthy people, we should really love ourselves, to love others, no matter what they're doing. Beautiful, beautiful. But then we read on, and the Alter Rebbe says, by the way, it says in the Talmud, that if you see your friend sinning, you're supposed to hate him, and you're supposed to tell your teacher, so he should hate him also. Now, the Alter Rebbe isn't bringing in this piece of Gemara to wonder if he misunderstood loving the other Jew just as you love yourself, no matter what that other Jew is doing. He brought this in because he wants you to understand it and therefore to incredibly shrink what it means, as versus if you misunderstood it and thought it meant this. Because otherwise, it's a complete contradiction to what he's telling you. So instead of you asking the question or you thinking, oh, that's so nice, it's so beautiful, such a warm, loving, and then you're like, wait a minute, I learned this piece of Talmud. No, that was all wrong. So instead of you wondering on the spot or later, the Alter Rebbe is dealing with it now. Wonderful way. Teachers should always use this technique. So what does it mean? If you see a friend sinning, you're supposed to hate him. The Alter Rebbe says, let's be careful we understand what's going on here. He says a friend. That doesn't mean every Jew. You're supposed to love every Jew. Not every Jew is your friend. When you see this other person sinning, it's a friend. It's someone who is on your level in your service of God. So if you see anyone below you sinning, not on your level, not, again, we don't know what's really going on, but as the human eye can understand, anyone who has less background, less experience, less exposure, less knowledge, well, this injunction of the Talmud is irrelevant. That's not considered your friend in Torah and mitzvahs. Now, how do we know we're talking about someone who's on our level in Torah and mitzvahs when it says your friend? Well, the Alter Rebbe said, we can see this based on the concept of who are we allowed to rebuke. Well, what does that have to do with anything? Well, because you can't hate him unless you rebuked him. And if you can't rebuke him, you can't hate him. And who are you allowed to rebuke? Well, as we see from the verse, Hocheach tochiach, thou shalt surely rebuke, es amisecha. What does that funny word mean? Our sages say, break it into two words, im she'itcha. The one who is with you in what? The sages say, with you in Torah mitzvahs, with you in service of God. You can just go around rebuking people that don't know they're Jewish or barely know they're Jewish, have no clue what it means to be a Jew, or no clue what it means God, or no clue what it means a soul, no clue. Yes, they know they're Jewish and they know Yom Kippur Jews fast, but they don't know what it means to be a Jew. They don't know what it means Yom Kippur. They don't even know what a Jew means to fast on Yom Kippur. Like, you can't rebuke such people. They don't know anything. Not fair. What's the point of rebuke? So we're only allowed to rebuke people that are roughly, again, you're not taking out your magnifying glass, but roughly on your level in terms of knowledge, experience, exposure to serving God. And if they're not, you can't rebuke them. And if you can't rebuke them, you can't hate them. Because they sin, you rebuke, and then you rebuke again, and then you rebuke again, and then you rebuke again. And when you stop rebuking? When they don't let you anymore. Or, of course, they change. But if they don't change, and they don't tell you to stop, you just have the same injunction to rebuke them. You never get to the next stage. Again, person sins, someone that you can rebuke because A, they're on your level in terms of relationship with God, and B, you have a personal relationship with them. Well, why do you do that? Because if you don't, why would they listen to you? Why would they think you care about them? Why would they think what you're saying is for their sake and not for your sake? So if it's a person who is not on your level in terms of relationship to God, you can't rebuke, and therefore you can't hate. So what do? Love them and try to bring them closer to God. If it's a person who's on your level, but you're not close to them and don't have an emotional relationship with them, you can't rebuke them either. Why not? Because they won't accept it from you. Who are you to talk to me? You don't care about me. You care about you. Why would I listen to you if you only care about you? So what do you do at that point? Good question. It's a good problem. Maybe you try to think of someone who they do have a connection to, who will be able to help them. And maybe you tell that other person enough of what's going on that you're aware of that person can help. And what can you do? You can love them. You can give to them. You can pray for them. You can take on mitzvahs for them. You can give charity for them. Whenever in general you see someone who's messing up, who's not doing what they should be doing, and your heart breaks, you care about them, you love them, you're close to them, or you're just aware of it and your heart breaks, you can always do the most helpful thing. Love them, pray for them. You could take on saying Tehillim, a psalm for them. You could give charity every day for them. And you can take on an extra commandment, an extra mitzvah, or beautify a commandment you're currently doing for their sake. And you tell God, straight conversation with God, God, this beautification of the commandment, this extra care in that piece of law that I was sort of spacing over, that commandment that I wasn't really doing properly, I'm doing it for his sake. I'm doing it for her sake. Put it in their bank account. And God does. So if you see someone sinning and suffering, you have plenty of tools to help them. So am I supposed to rebuke them? Only rebuke them if they're on your level and if you have the relationship, because otherwise the rebuke isn't going to help and will probably make things worse. But if you, so for the majority of Jewish people that we know, we never get to stage one. Like I say, never get to base one. You can't get to the first base because you don't have the two preconditions, same level of relationship to God, roughly, and emotional, personal relationship with them. So you can't get your rebuke. If you can get your rebuke, you keep on rebuking from the absolute depth of your heart with all your love for the person. You talk to them, and 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 you talk to them. And you keep talking as long as you talk. Imagine someone who has, I don't know, a Jewish woman who wants to make sure her children marry Jews or her grandchildren marry Jews. So she'll talk about it, and then a few weeks or months later, she'll say it again, and then she'll say it again, and then she'll say it again. And until they say, Ma, Grandma, I don't want to hear a word from you about this again, you just keep talking. You want to get into their psyche. You want to make sure you have Jewish children, Jewish grandchildren, Jewish great-grandchildren. You want to make sure your line continues. So we keep talking as long as let us talk. If it comes to a point where this is the person in your background, this is the person you have a relationship with, this is the person you're capable of rebuking, and you rebuke them many times and they tell you, stop, I don't want to hear you talk about it anymore, then comes the obligation to hate them. So we're going to soon discuss, we're going to put that aside for a minute, what happens if you're actually supposed to hate them? I thought we're supposed to love everyone. Do I love some and hate others? What's going on? Before we get to that point, the Rebbe says, so let's just start from the top of 82. Hainu, b'chaver b'torah b'mitzvos. When it says you see your friend sinning, it means your friend equitable to you in relationship to God, in the study of Torah and the commandments. And there was a prerequisite. You already rebuked him. When it says rebuke amisecha, we said im she'itcha, the one who is like you. Torah uva mitzvos. That's how we know those are only the people you're allowed to rebuke, and therefore those are only the people you are mandated to hate. And even though you're rebuking them, and this is a person you can rebuke, and we said, why are you supposed to rebuke them? To get them to change, to get them to realize what they're doing is wrong. And that's actually why you're supposed to hate them as well. The hatred has a purpose. The hatred is not, oh my gosh, I'm so mad at you. The hatred is a tool. It's a tool to get them to recognize they need to change. So here's this person who you poured your heart into rebuking them. You pleaded with them. You have a relationship with them. You care about them. You put them first. This is not an ego thing for you. This is not a scalp on your belt. This is about them. And they know that. They know what you're saying is true. They know what you're saying comes from your heart. But they still didn't repent. As explained in that work. Now, we need to understand. So it's sort of like, now imagine what we used to do a million years ago, right? Where you would draw those computer flowcharts, or if then. So we have two options here. You have the person sinning. Question: am I allowed to give him a rebuke? Only if he's on my level and I have a relationship with him. Okay, then I go that road. Both coordinates were met. I gave him rebuke. And then what I do? You keep giving rebuke. And then what I do? You keep giving rebuke. Until when? Until he tells you, stop talking to me about it. Then go to the direction of, now we're making a turn. You have to hate him. You have to. It's not an option. You have to. And I'm done? No, not at all. But we're putting that on the side because now we're following the other direction. What if this is a person who is not on your level or you don't have a relationship with? So you can't go to step one of rebuking and can never get to step two of being mandated to hate. But what are you supposed to do? Just walk away and say, oh, what a pity? No, you're supposed to do things as well. Now, again, there are two options here because you need two things. They need to be on your level and you need to have a relationship. If they're on your level and you don't have a relationship, we said, try to find someone who does. But what if they're not on my level? I do or don't have a relationship, but they're not on my level. So I can't rebuke them, but neither can anyone else. They're not on a level. Then what do you do? So the Alter Rebbe continues. Someone who's not on his level of serving God, and is not close to him. You don't have that emotional relationship either. This is what Hillel the elder, the original prototype Hillel, said. Be like the students, the followers of Aaron. Ohev shalom v'chule. Love peace, etc. Ohev es habrios. Love the creations. Love, it doesn't say love man. Just love someone who's a creation of God. Mekarvan latayra. And through your love, you should merit to draw them closer to Torah. Meaning, Hillel is telling us, be like Aaron. Aaron and his students were especially gifted in loving Jews. And that's why it says that when Aaron passed away, all the Jews mourned him. It says when Moshe passed away, the men mourned. It says when Aaron passed away, they all mourned him. Why were the women more on Aaron's, feeling bad at that point? Because Aaron was very gifted at making peace between people, including husband and wives. Because he loved them so much and he was able to facilitate their relationships. He didn't look at them and categorize them and judge them and diminish them. He looked at them and he loved them. And through his love, he was able to bring them closer to each other and to God. And Hillel is saying we all should be Aaron's students. We should love every single person. And guess what? Hopefully, though maybe not, but hopefully our love itself will help us bring them closer to God. It might not. And if it doesn't, it's still a great thing to love another Jew. But it might. And it's a great thing to help another Jew get close to God. It's a great thing for that Jew, and it's a great thing for God. And the Rebbe, Dr. Rebbe, more than once writes, different ways, but expresses this concept of, like, imagine this king, special king, noble king, wonderful king, wise king, who has an only child, who he's estranged from. And imagine you have the merit and the ability to reconnect father and son. Imagine what that feels inside for you. Imagine the king's gratitude and love for you for doing that for him. That's the imagination we're supposed to have. The Rebbe speaks, previous Rebbe speaks about it's great to have a good imagination if you use it well. That's what we're supposed to feel every time we have the merit of reconnecting a Jew to God. It's a great service for the Jew. It's a great service for God. And what is the foundational tool? It's not intellect. It's love. It's love. And then through the love, connect to the person. So as we were saying before, when you love someone and they know you love someone, then they know when you're talking for their sake, not for your sake, not for your brownie points. You're caring for them. You're truly loving them. You're truly caring for them. And that helps them reconnect. Sarah?
I just wanted to add, I came in a little bit late because I couldn't find my Bluetooth and the sound was going through there. But, a lot of times when you're nice to somebody and you try to bring them closer, you don't see the results quickly. But it's that way in therapy also. And sometimes it takes years, a couple of years more than that. And something people remember something and put it together at a much later date, but you laid the foundation.
Very, very, very true. And that's why we can't, by the way, obviously for all this to work, it has to be real. We're not saying act as if you love them, pretend you love them, act as if you think they're a person you would like to have a relationship with. It has to be real because most people know when you're real and when you're not. So you have to sincerely love, which is great. That's what the chapter is talking about. And your sincere love, as Sarah is saying, slowly, slowly, slowly. It could be very slowly. That's okay. Helps them for a myriad of reasons, and helps bring them close to God. But it might not bring them close to God in a way you can see. Sarah's saying it's going to happen, and maybe it'll happen a while later, which she's very right. So maybe you're never going to know that piece of the story, but that's okay. It's always good to love another too. There's no loss involved here. There's no loss incurred. Oh my gosh, I love this person so deeply, and I didn't see any shift in their relationship with God. You did a wonderful thing. You're loving another Jew. That's what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to spread a lot of love in this world. That's great. If that was the end of the story, it's still a good story. It's still a positive story. So then we're saying, you see someone sinning, what are you supposed to do? If they're on your level and you have the relationship, you're supposed to rebuke sincerely with love until you can't. And then if you can't anymore, you have to go to this mandated hatred to be continued or not finish that story. If they're not on your level and you don't have this relationship with them, what are you supposed to do? You're supposed to love them.